Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's July 26th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And notice where we bounced here. This is our daily chart with the envelope bands on it. Notice how we're working sideways now. Notice how those bands are sideways. This is your EMA, which is not only sideways, it's kind of pointed up slightly, and that's just because of this recent rally here. But notice we did bounce off the highs of that trading range, so we may push up here and make a new high and test this measured move, and we'll see where we go from there. I still think we're going lower, because if you back out here and look at this bigger blue channel working down, this is the first break outside or close outside convincing, and we haven't made a new low yet. So that leads me to believe we're probably going to still sell off. We'll just have to see, but we may run up here and test this. We got this channel working up. We got our close outside. It does look like we closed outside and retested that high all in one bar, but with this being a daily chart, I would expect that we'd probably try to retest that. The prices are going to try. They may not be able to, but it looks like we're going to try to bounce here and maybe go back and retest that. We'll just have to see what happens. So it's just a little, I mean, we're mostly sideways now. We do have our two legs up, but we didn't quite get a measured leg. I mean, that's close enough to maybe call it good. We'll have to see. But to me, I still think longer term we have more room to the downside on a retest, and shorter term we may go higher before we go lower. Hopefully that makes sense. But just looking at the big picture, that's how I'm seeing it. So anyway, let's flip over to the 2,000 tick chart, go through the trades. Definitely a downtrend today. We closed off the lows, but definitely a downtrend day. And you can see that here. It turns out there's a bigger, the bigger blue channel. Early on, I just had this down channel. There were a couple ways to look at this. I started off with the range because obviously we're going sideways, and when we broke lower, we got a measured leg down. It looked like prices tried to bounce there, and they did to some degree after a little failed break lower, but that just led into more selling. So this channel never felt 100% right, especially with the break here, and we already had a new low in place, and then when we started lower again, you have to assume that we were creating another channel, which we did the short term one, but in the big picture there was just a bigger channel, and you couldn't really confirm that till, I mean, I guess you could say you could confirm it here, but off one, even though that's multiple touches right there, if you zoom in, it's still the one move up there. So I'd want to see it come back and test it again, which it does here. Then you get a little faith that, hey, we probably got a bigger channel going lower here. Really, you kind of could figure it out when we got to here, because then that makes sense while we were bouncing here. That's the midline. And that kind of puts it all together for you. So this is one of those days you have to look for an alternate channel or an extended channel. Once we're out of this one, then you go into this one. So if you just played the shorter term ones, you were probably good to go. But if you found this bigger one, it really helped you over here on this trade here. And you might have even taken this other trade. I didn't mark it. I think it's too risky, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So early on, it was a range that turned with a kind of a weird sideways but obviously downward channel that was really a larger channel. I mean, this is just a smaller channel. The darker blue is a smaller channel within the larger channel, and you'll see that a lot. And these other ones are even smaller micro channels within that channel. And I mean, that's how this all works. A lot of people lose sight of this, but how this all works is there's layers. There's layer after layer after layer, and you can go down to smaller layers and you could go up to larger layers. And that's why it works on any time, in other words, this works on a 2,000 tick chart, it'd work on a 500 tick chart, it would work on a 5,000 tick chart, it'd work on a 1-day chart. If you take the labels off, you can't tell one chart from the next. They're all exactly the same. They're price charts. But those layers are what make this work the way it works, and the fact that it works on any chart, any size, no matter what you try to trade. Obviously, the smaller you go, the more fake outs and false triggers you'll have and things like that. So there's usually a happy median in there. 2000 tick, really what we originally started doing was we tried to find a chart that matched a 5-minute chart, and they gave you 5 minutes per bar to kind of read the chart and figure it out. And I think that's good for new traders. It does slow it down a little bit. So if you wanted to increase your tick chart because of the recent volatility, you could do that, because we're not really, these are not 5-minute bars anymore. They're 1 to 3 minute bars, depending on what the volatility is like for the day. So I used to try to keep it at 5 minutes, but it just got to be too much trouble trying to figure out the day each day and figure out, should I be on a 2000 tick. I've got enough experience. I just like trading the 2000 tick chart, so I don't change it. That's what I trade. However, if you want to change your chart, feel free to. If you want to slow it down a little bit, it's okay to go higher. Just don't go any lower. People will ask me, why don't I just trade a 1 minute chart or a 1000 tick chart? Because you get a lot more entries. Well, the idea is not to get more entries. The idea is to get winners and no losers. And so, yeah, if you want to get more trades, if you want to trade for the thrill of it, drop down to a 1000 tick chart. You'll get plenty of trades, but you'll have a whole slew of losers and you probably won't make any money. So ask yourself, am I here to trade for the thrill of trading, or am I here to make money? If you're here to make money, the strategy is to find 2 or 3 of the best trades every day, even if that means waiting hours, and take those 2 or 3 trades and call it a day. That's how you make money at this. So I hope that's clear. The idea is not to take more trades. When people tell me that, I just want to add another trade to my trading repertoire. So I can get a few more trades every day. When people tell me that, I cringe, because I know they're going to fail if they really follow that strategy and thinking process, and I have to try to convince them that's the wrong thinking process. It's the wrong strategy. The strategy is to find 2 or 3 sure things every day and take them. And if you don't find them, you don't trade. As simple as that. If you do that and you can be disciplined enough to follow that strategy, you're going to have a whole lot better chance of succeeding. So anyway, there's the big picture. We finally got a break outside right here, ran to a new low, and then we rallied some. You can see, and got kind of wild up here. Was there a news item late this afternoon? I don't know what happened late this afternoon. It got kind of wild there around 3 o'clock. Usually that's when everybody exits, but it's usually not that crazy. Maybe something happened. Maybe there was something that unexpected news that I haven't seen yet, because I don't even look at the news. The news, they write the news to fit the price action. Used to for years, I got up and watched the news every morning religiously, and thinking I'm going to get an edge, learn something. And once I finally figured out how to read this chart and understood price action, I knew immediately that the news doesn't have a clue. They write that news to fit the price action. So if you're trying to watch the news to get a edge, you're wasting your time. Those guys don't have a clue. Those people on those news items do not have a clue. You'll just be wasting your time. So anyway, let's talk about the trades. 7 o'clock came right here in this little choppy stuff right in here, and I don't see anything I'd want to trade. It does break out, no setup. We finally break lower, it fails and comes back. And you get a second entry short right at that midline again with a nice bearish bar. I like that trade. Let me zoom in here a little more just to make this easier to see. But you can see there's a nice signal bar there. A new low here, first entry, second entry. Runs down, makes a higher low. There's a second entry long there, and it's a higher low with a little ways away from the EMA. If that would have been a good signal bar, that might have been a place to think about entering, hoping to catch a low, but it doesn't really turn out to be that way. And then we're just kind of chopping sideways again, and this does actually confirm that trend line, and this is just a further confirmation. But that bar is just too big. It didn't break higher. It's just an equal high, so you couldn't really trade it as an engulfing bar, or you'd be using that for the signal bar. And so when this closed this big with that much stem on the end, you just have to skip that. This one is it's one you might consider, but it's so close to these lows, it's risky, especially on a breakout. Most breakouts fail, so you're better off really to look for something to trade back into the range at that point. So I just think you have to skip those. Then we do bounce down here. Turns out we're bouncing off the midline of that bigger channel that we found later. And I wondered why we didn't get back down here. And originally I tried to draw this channel up here, but it didn't fit up here. And now that once later in the day came and you could get more price action to look at, now it makes perfect sense why we bounced here. There's a midline on the bigger channel. And we bounced off that midline, and that's why we couldn't get to this trend line. And there is a failure here. This is a possibility. You could argue for it to be green, but look how congested that is. And it could break higher and turn right back down, stop you out, and then still go back up to this higher side. So I think you're better off just to sit tight. I mean, if you took that as knowing it's aggressive, maybe, I mean, if that would have broke higher, but it just gives you a 2-bar matching high, that's usually not a good sign. And you can see prices struggle. They pulled back before they went higher, and you just don't get another setup to catch that last move. But it turns down right off the trend line again. Then it gives you a lower high with a big bearish bar. That's where I like going short. And that's a nice move. Ride that all the way down. If you get a runner, depending on how you play that, you may not get a runner. We get a close outside new low, and where do we bounce? Right off the low. We run all the way back up to the other side. That's just a first entry. It is right off the key entry point, but it's still within that channel, and so that makes that a little risky. If you get a lower high, and again, it's right off the main trend line, very bearish bar, plenty of room back to the EMA, take that trade. This one's even tempting. However, a reversal like this should set up underneath the EMA to go short, and it closes above. So, and you can see it pulls back a couple times before it goes lower, and that's because it's not a great reversal setup. And most of your smart traders are probably going to sit idle and be patient and wait on something better. Again, you could argue, you could argue and say, okay, maybe that's a little aggressive, but I think it was worth taking, and you'd come out all right. But if you take those, you're going to lose sometimes. So the good thing is you're still way up here at the high of the trend line, and prices will probably go all the way to the low. In this case, they don't. They come up short again. Reverse, you get a break, and you're just kind of chopping along, and I don't see anything I like here. It's just too much sideways until it drops down. And notice you got a double top here, and you get a first entry, you push through the EMA, pull back. That's what a good reversal looks like. It actually gives you a great signal bar here. You could have traded this on the engulfing bar when it comes by here. It has to break out the top side first. If it breaks out the low side and comes back, when it comes back through again, you could enter. But at that point, I'd probably wait on this bar to close just to be sure it's not going to bounce one more time, and then I'd go short right there. Runs down. You get a close outside this cayenne colored channel here. And you actually get a second entry here. They make matching highs, but there's just too much stem there. That bar doesn't qualify. You get another first entry right here, another first entry. There's a second entry here, but now you got support across here. And that's the measured move. But at this point, we've made the measured move based on the width of this. That's what that dash line is across there. And so this is a place you got to be concerned. We might get a bounce. And we do get a bounce. This one just fails, and then we get a breakout. And it looks like we're going to get a bounce, and it fails too. So, but anyway, I don't see, that's just too much sideways right into the midline, and it's been holding every time. I don't think you can risk going long there. If you'd had enough room when it came by on the engulfing bar, maybe, but you don't have enough room before that midline. Sure, it ran up here the last couple of times, but it ends up closing below there, so it could turn down right off that. And it looks like it's going to, but it ends up pushing on up. There's a higher low here, but not much room to there, and you can see it holds. Lower high here, but unless you traded that on the engulfing bar, and even then I don't think there's enough room to get out. And you had to also be concerned about the dashed line, because that's the measured move, and it might take over and out, because you see it looks like it held here a couple of times, even that bar. So we may not get back down to this one. It ends up working, but you don't know that. You get a second entry long right here, counting off the top on a failed breakout. Big bullish bar. That looks like the one you want. If you're going to take a risk, it's a triple test too. That's the reason I marked it blue. Otherwise, it'd probably be green. But if I'm going to take a risk on one, that's going to be it. And look at it go, and it looks like, hey, looks like we were brilliant and caught the low of the day, and it turns and takes it back in seconds here, almost minutes anyway. So nice move and a nice. You could have got a nice runner out of that most likely, but you don't catch the low of the day, unfortunately. And then you get this move down, a lower high right here with a big bearish bar. I like that one because you'll probably get another leg down similar. And then we're just chopping sideways. So this sets the trend line. This comes back and confirms it, but you can't go short right there. You have no room at all. It works, but it may not work. So drop on down. And notice how we can't get back to this side of the trend channel. And we also couldn't even get back down to this trend line. That tells you you're probably going to at least get a break of this yellowish khaki trend channel. There is a second entry here. That bar is just not good enough. It makes a new high, so if that would have been really bearish, maybe you take that second entry short. But the fact that it's not and it makes a new high, I'm going to wait for a lower high, and that doesn't come till way down here, but I still like this one because it breaks higher and turns down. I don't know that I would trade it on an engulfing bar, but that bearish right there. And you do have a new low in place, but I would assume you're probably going to at least make a measured move. And you can see that. That gives you plenty of room. And you can see where it bounced right there. And that's where the smart traders that went short there were buying back their profits. And it doesn't go much lower than that before it reverses. So that would have been a perfect target, really. You're getting out almost perfectly. Yeah, it went a few ticks lower a couple of times, but not by much. And then we're just bouncing across here, and then there's that triple test. Notice we made a low, test it once, test it twice, and nice signal bar right there. And it's also a second entry long. That's where to go long. Somebody will probably say, well, you really had a triple test here. Yeah, you did, but it closed below the EMA. It's a first entry. You just don't have enough information yet. But when it holds 1, 2, 3 more times and then gives you this nice signal bar, you got a little room back to the EMA too. Definitely more room back to these highs across here. And that turns out to be a great move. There's a reversal right here. But again, it doesn't set up perfect. It doesn't quite get back to the EMA. Doesn't have a perfect close on the signal bar. Of course, that doesn't really matter on the reversal. Maybe you mark that one green. Maybe you take that one. It's not a perfect setup, but anyway. Runs up, makes a high, comes back, gives you that's the first close outside, gives you a second entry long. There's a bounce right here, but you can see you're still in that channel. You're below the EMA. This might even be, at this point, this might even be an overshoot because it looks like it's more down here, like so. In the end, I don't think it was an overshoot because if you come over here, these other three tend to fit. So maybe it wasn't an overshoot. There's probably a shorter term channel up through there that I don't have on there, like so. And you see the close, new high, and it comes back. But you'd want to close outside new low and then go higher. There's a higher low here. You just about have to trade that on the engulfing bar because I don't believe I'd go long with that much stem up there. You do have two legs back to the trend line here. Fairly small, low risk. I mean, 4 ticks. I mean, the bars are definitely starting to get a little more reasonable lately. Maybe you argue for that one. It's not a second entry because technically you make a higher low there, but you can clearly see 2 legs back to the key entry point, and it bounces instantly. The only problem is you already had a new high in place there, so that makes it a little more risky. If it had been a triple test too, maybe you take it. Runs on up to the trend line, comes down, gets you another break here, and next thing you know, you're running higher again. There's a higher low here, but you've already got a high in place, so there's a chance you could get trapped right there. So I don't like that one, but the second entry with this bar here, look how bearish that is. I like going short right there. And you can see that's a quick, easy move. It's kind of interesting that it doesn't take long before it comes back again and makes a new high. So maybe I've got this channel wrong. I don't see any other way for it to fit. Maybe it fits right there. I don't know. It doesn't. Maybe that's it right there. It doesn't look right to me. You really don't get a confirmation till here, and it doesn't really bounce. It just goes on through. So this is just one of those that I think you have. But you can see it comes back right there off that trend line, turns down off the upper side here. This is just one of those that's a little difficult to know. So I'm not sure why we made another and yet another one. I just think the market thought, I think a lot of people miss this other channel, and they're playing this and they think the bottom's in. And that's what I think. And the next thing you know, this thing's racing lower, and that's why all these buyers gave up right here, and off it goes. So, but it's a little hard to know that right here, and that's a pretty strong move. I don't see any reason to buy this either yet, and especially if you see this trend line, because we should be headed down here. But it runs up there, traps everybody long, and look at them turn it down. I mean, that's a perfect trap. So maybe you risk that as a triple test. I mean, it's there. I just don't know that I would. You can see it right there. It's definitely, I mean, it's not even a perfect triple test because this comes up a little short. Something to consider. And because if you don't catch that, you don't get in this trade. The bottom just falls out of it. Now you do get a second entry here. Nice signal bar. It's a little sideways. It does make a measured move and gives you a second entry, so I think that's worth taking. It's good for a quick scalp, and then that's it. Actually, let me clarify that. I wouldn't go short right here at the low of this because of the midline. But it broke higher first, so if you have enough room between here and here, maybe you take that one. So that's why it's green, because as tempting as that is, you've got to worry that this thing bounces here and goes higher. Because even here, we've already got a break of the blue channel and a new low in place. It's not by much, but there's a new low in place. So you got to be careful going short here. But maybe you take that one because there is no retest of this yet, and you see it kind of traps people out before it runs back down here, and then it bounces into the close. There's another run up right here. I don't see anything. You might say, hey, what about this failed second entry short? But that's just too sideways right there to consider that part of a second entry or whatever. There is a second entry long here, but it closes below the EMA. And we're just kind of going sideways, and this thing could go down or up here. And again, I don't know what happened here other than this is just a 3 o'clock close. I mean, usually it's not that volatile, but maybe it was today. I don't know. So, and off we're going higher here. So, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Well, we're getting towards 25 minutes here, and decent trading day, much better than what we had yesterday. You could find some trades in here today, some good solid trades. and you had to be patient. Like usual, the morning was pretty good, and then you had to be patient in the afternoon. There's a few in there. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.